I'd like to call this meeting to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu?
Here.
Mr. Sismar?
Here.
Mr. Hong?
Here.
Mrs. Lax?
Here.
Mrs. Reese?
Here.
Mr. Seeler?
Here.
Mr. Simmons?
Here.
Mr. Winston?
Here.
And President Becker.
Here, we have a quorum. Please rise to salute the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the East Brunswick Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published at the Board of Education offices. Also, written notice was provided to the Sentinel, the Newark Star Ledger, the Home News and Tribune, and the Municipal Clerk of East Brunswick. All Board of Education meetings, with the exception of executive session discussions, are videotaped for later broadcast. Individuals who speak at the board's public meeting should be aware of these videotaping rules. Good evening. The good of the cause for the public, the Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues. To allow for a fair and orderly public comment period, individual comments are limited to 5 minutes. To protect the privacy of all students and staff, concerns regarding individual students and staff members should generally be addressed by first meeting with the appropriate administrative staff. Is there anyone wishing to address the board tonight? Seeing none, I will close the public portion and move on to Board of Education items. Can I please have a motion for item 1, policy approval on second reading?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hong. Is there any discussion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Sismar?
Yes.
Mr. Hong?
Yes.
Mrs. Lax?
Yes.
Mrs. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Seeler?
Yes.
Mr. Seeler?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. Can I please have a motion for item number 2, resolution regarding computers for live streaming access to surveillance cameras?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax,
Second.
second by Mr. Hong. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Moving on to facilities agenda, can I please have a motion for item number 1, bid for HVAC upgrades and roof replacement at Churchill Junior High School?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax.
Second.
Second by Mr. Seeler. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Are there any committee reports, information items? Seeing none, I'll close the...
Oh.
Oh, Mrs.
I
Lax.
thought you, at first I thought you
No,
chatted me, then I'm like,
yes.
oh, I get that. I
Yes,
got
Mrs.
it.
Lax, yes, speak.
A little slow. Okay, wait, this is a good one though. So, and you still, the best part is you still have time to take me up on this. So, the Education Foundation and the majority of our elementary PTAs partnered together this week to bring in Patricia Polacco. I know, Barbara, when you were at Frost, she had her there, so this is not as exciting for her. But I will tell you, in all my years of doing cultural arts and all of the different authors and assemblies, I will tell you, I kept saying she'll never live up to the hype. She lived up to the hype. She was phenomenal. The staff and the students are still talking about her.
Great.
She connected like I've never seen. When you're talking about hundreds of students, all different ages, she had her program tailored to each age group. She had the little ones, when she noticed them getting antsy, she'd have them get up and do this little like move to kind of shake out the I don't know what it is, the preschoolness. But she talked to these kids, the 4th, the 5th graders, the 3rd graders. She talked about the fact that at 14 years old, this woman was not reading. She suffered from dyslexia and dysmorphia and all sorts of issues that back then, learning disabilities were not treated the same way that we are now. She talked about how hard it was and how she overcame it. And she actually, one of the greatest lines, I'm probably going to mess it up, but you'll get the gist of it. She said, we're all gifted. We all just open our gifts at different times.
Oh, that's great.
And it was so beautiful. She actually had a 4th grader that came up to her and talked about how much it meant to him. Because she spoke to that community, and it was nice for the child that just felt like they weren't smart enough, they weren't good enough. And she talked about the fact that she wrote her first book at 41 years old. But at 14 years old, to put in perspective, in Churchill, to have kids in Churchill not being able to read, not be able to get up in front of a class and be able to speak to their peers, That's when she learned to read, due to a good teacher that she wrote one of her books about. Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. She talked about how kids were so cruel back then, you know, and what she was able to do with her life and to rise beyond it. And it was just, and all of the stories in the books had all these personal meanings. It was phenomenal. So the good news is, she's been to the majority of the schools, but tomorrow you do have a chance to go see her. So I have the schedule. If anyone is around tomorrow, I would highly recommend. Jack and Lindsay were able to, as I said, come in, and it was really nice to see the Education Foundation dollars at once.
Is the presentation?
She does about an hour. But I will say this, it's funny. People that do this, they tell you have 45 minutes or an hour, and they're so rigid. She spent, I want to say she spent an hour and a half at one of them. If kids had questions, she didn't stop them. She kept asking. She was very, very open, very, very honest about it. And I mean, just a lovely woman. And just,
See what the schedule is.
so yeah, I would highly recommend it. I have the schedule. But for the kids, and if you have kids in elementary school, ask them about it, because as I said, the kids are still raving about it. The teachers, most of the time they did teacher breakfasts and luncheons with her. And it was beautiful. She just connected with these kids and the staff. And the staff was thrilled, so.
That's great, Lori. It was worth
Yes.
hearing you. It really was.
My swan song of cultural arts.
Really?
Yes, I promised Mrs. Fernandez, our school media specialist, that I would be doing this before I left. I kept my promise, and it's the best thing I ever did. So, yeah.
Good for you. Anyone else? Okay, we do need to have a motion for closed session. Whereas the Board of Education must discuss matters which are not appropriate for discussion in a public meeting. Those items are as follows: that which is listed on our agenda tonight. Whereas the length of the closed session is estimated to be 2 hours, after which the public meeting of the board shall reconvene and action may be taken.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax.
Second.
Second by Mr. Seeler. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Good night.